Hello everyone, welcome to Archer Gaming, and today we're going to do a bit of a different video. Um, so for some of you who are aware of stuff I've done before, follow me from L5R. Typically before Worlds for L5R, I'd publish an article or do a small video, go through my predictions and stuff like that. And for the best part, the twice I went, the first time I was massively out, the second time I was a lot closer to it. So I thought with UK Nationals for Flesh and Blood just around the corner, I thought, why not go on and make a recording now? We've had both ProQuest in the States. We can have a look through the heroes and see my thoughts on them all, see where I think they could place, and kind of maybe even try and gauge some numbers. It's just for fun, and please do remember this is my opinion. I don't know much, so please do enjoy. So prediction wise, I've got this noted down and I've got it percent wise. Um, I've kind of gone based on about 75 players rocking up to nationals out of the 96 invites. I still think it's a good number, and I think that's a really healthy number. As much as I would love to see 8 people rock up, um, that's not going to happen. But I know, for example, the Battle Hardened on the Friday, that's sold out, and I'm aware of at least 5 players, us from Bournemouth, who aren't even involved in that. But then, flip side of that, I am aware of players that have gone up for the Battle Hardened who aren't at nationals. So there is that fine tune. But let's start with W2R. So let's just start across on the right. So we got a Rhino on the left. Sorry. So let's start across with a Rhino. So Rhino is what I took to the WRTN. Sorry, the RTN I played in at Darksphere. I think Rhino is very solid, and there is a very few loyal UK players who will stick with Reinhardt and see how it goes. I think Reinhardt's very strong, but I think he is one of the lowest of the Welcome to Wraith heroes of representation there. I think you kind of, well, a lot of the Reinhardt decks I've seen and have played at a high level haven't relied on Scabsians. When they have, they kind of got wrong. And I think Reinhardt's just in a really interesting position. I think he can put a lot of pressure on some of the other meta decks, and other decks I think are going to do well. He's a very good counter meta pick. From what I've seen and what I've read, but unfortunately, I don't think Reinhardt's going to have a lot of representation. I don't think he's going to go that high. And then we move on to Bravo. Now, Bravo again, similar situation to Rhine. However, has done very well at some events, obviously over here and in the States. Has also had the pump of some, very few, but some cards from Tales of Aria, such as the shield and the one-handed hammer, Tear Asunder. So I think Bravo has seen a little bit more love since the RTN season, and in that he was very strong. He has a good matchup against quite a lot of the new heroes because of how much volume of pitch he has. So I think Bravo, and he doesn't like the restrictions that Oldham struggles into, which we'll go over in a little bit. But I think Bravo, again, could see very well high placed. I don't think he'll be overly represented, but I do think he would show a fair. I don't think anyone's going to say, "Oh my God, there's only a few Bravos." I think Bravo will have a good showing, and I think he'll place very well. Uh, and then we go on to Katsu. Now, on my math, I do have Katsu, and again, this is based on my predictions. I could be completely wrong. I don't know what anyone's playing outside of the meta of my local area. I know Stillfuzz videos, he's kind of kept that a bit hush locally on him. I'm going to respect that on my players, which are going up as well, and keep relatively hush on there. But I think Katsu is very strong, as proved by Finbar himself, getting the 2 RTM wins with him, I think. Might have been even more. It's very strong, a very, very consistent deck, and consistency is key. Not the queen of consistency, but Katsu, he's easy to switch what style of deck with your sideboards. You can turtle up, you can go aggressive, which gives him a good mix. And I think he'll be the second highest represented hero. And again, because of volumes of people and how good he is, he will also have a very high win rate. Towards the top end of the field will be a few Katsus. And the same can almost be said about Dory. So at the moment I have Dory as my third highest pick rate. Again, I know she hasn't hit any of the top 8s in the ProQuest. I'll kind of use those data a bit more based on they are more recent. They have the Tails cards. But Dory in the UK and Europe especially has always had a very strong showing and a bit more support than in the States. Um, I know, again, based on RTNs, there's quite a few of the London guys running her. I know a few other players that may be running her over the weekend. And she's consistent. Like, again, she's got one of the best value weapons in the game in terms of how little you can put forward sometimes and really pump it up, and it can get really scary. I think she does suffer against some of the matchups that might be a bit less represented as well. I think her and Katsu is a 50-50, but I think Bravo, I don't know. I honestly don't know. The Bravo, I think Bravo with the shield is giving him a big boost against Dory. So that could be really interesting to see. Again, I don't have any local player knowledge to put on that, but I think Dory will be a lot more well represented. Again, I wouldn't be surprised to see a few Dorys in that top 24. Um, same with Katsu, same with Bravo, possibly a Rhino. But yeah, Dory's always been strong. And again, like I say, I come from an L5R experience. I know the European and American meta does differ despite the age of internet deck listing. I do know that. So I think Dory is in with a very good shout, doing very, very well, along with Katsu and Bravo. Uh, Unfortunately, the same can't be said about Arcane Rising. Um, so again, I think this is has the chance to do really well, but I don't think it will based on numbers I'm sort of predicting, player base, and for these predictions I've kind of had a look at what's popular when I've gone to other venues, what people are asking for in trade groups, seeing what tech people are asking for. So it's just my opinion. Again, I could be completely wrong, and there could be 70 Viceroy players. But let's start with Dash. Now, Dash is probably the strongest out of the Arcane Rising heroes, and that breaks my heart. For those who know. Um, but Dash is very strong, very consistent. Second, you can get those items out. She's in a world of her own for not a lot. Um, she can outrace you again. She can switch to turtling up or controlling you as well. There's two variations that you're not going to know when they say I'm playing Dash. So it's very hard to sideboard against. This, again, similar to Katsu, you don't know what type of deck you're playing against. So you don't know, do I put all these defense reactions in? Are they going to go aggro? Do I try to slow the game down? So I think Dash is very good, but I don't think she has a lot of support in terms of players. Again, I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, but I think Dash is the strongest out of the Arcane heroes for this nationals. But I don't think she'll see a huge amount of representation, which is a shame, but I think she'll do really well out of that representation. Next up, we have my favourite, Azalea. Now, again, breaks my heart. I don't think any Azaleas are going to make the cut. I don't think Azalea, there'll be a high representation. Again, I think similar to Rhino, there's a few loyalists, but I think even less. Ranger is very difficult to play. Especially without some of the tools that Lexi has. It's dominated shots, and I think Ice Lexi, if you want to do that style, is a bit more consistent. You're not relying off the top flip, which sometimes you can't always control what it's going to be. You lose then a lot of the elemental cards, whereas Lexi can kind of just pay one, load an arrow, it has dominate. So I think Azalea, again, we'll see a few Azalea players, but I think will struggle. Unfortunately, like I say, Azalea player, it breaks my heart to say that. We go to Viserai, so the first of our 3 rune plates. Now this is the big unknown for me. I don't know if the bulk of the players that were on chain jumped to Viserai, or whether they held off for Briar, or whether they've stuck with chain, or whether they've gone in a completely different direction. Again, I think Viserai is in a very similar situation to Reinhardt and Dash. Has a lot of good players, has a very solid deck, but I think the issue with Viserai is it's not consistent enough. And if you don't if you're playing one-time kill Viscera and you don't get that combo off, or it's too late, um, you can struggle. I think Viscera could be interesting. Viscera could be a bit more of a wild card than a this is going to win. Again, I don't think there's a lot of players on Viscera. So again, Viscera could be interesting. But not as interesting as Kano. I don't really know what to say here, to be honest. He could come through with a deck and win the whole thing undefeated in any time this CC. No one prepared for it. Blast for everyone. Flip side of that, he could go with like 1 or 2 players and they lose 6 rounds. I don't think there'll be much mid-round ground for Kano players, unfortunately. I think they'll either win a good chunk of their games or lose a good chunk of their games. So, you could see a Kano player make the cut based on, they play against players that haven't practiced against Kano as much. Player does well in the draft as well and then has another run against people which aren't prepared or planning against Kano. I could make the cut that way. But I think it is a very ballsy play to run Kano. But again, very low representation again, if any at all. But those players will be 0 or heroes, unfortunately. And again, as I'm going through this, I mean, no disrespect to any of the players playing these heroes. Again, you have my full support. I wish everyone could make their goals. But unfortunately, we're not all able to. And I think Kano is Kano. No one's going to be brave enough to run into the crew heroes. I mean, KO could be bounced in CC. I do kind of really want to try that, especially when he goes adult. Same as Cheyenne. But yeah, again, no one's running that. So Monarch. So we do have Prism. So Prism, fresh off a couple of wins. I already had her pegged as one of the highest favourites going into this. Again, from what I've seen at other events, locally, sort of over the last few years. Again, this is before Tails came out, so things have changed. She's very popular. She's very consistent. She can hit you with big attacks. There's 3 different ways you can take a Prism deck. They're all very strong. She has a couple of bad matchups, but again, the bad matchups are low representative decks. So I think Prism could be really interesting. Prism could win the whole thing again. Could see similar to the ProQuest. I think it would be different decks. And that's the thing about Prism. You even look at the 2 ProQuest she's won, and they're completely different decks, which is amazing to see. Like, again, coming from L5R, you could see 2 Strongholds be completely different decks. I think you could see 2. I think, again, this Nationals, you could see a 3rd completely different Prism deck win it out. And she is my pick for the highest represented at the UK Nash. Again, I kind of wrote this before the ProQuest was coming out. I was starting to work on this before then. Then we also got onto Bolton, so our other light hero. Now again, Bolton has some interesting matches in the meta. Again, has a variety of ways to go, and you're not going to know that until they flip over their weapon. And even then, you're not always going to know. Obviously, you've got things like Sabers Bolton, Charge Bolton, Raiden is Charge Bolton. You could see Axe Bolton. There's a mixture of ways Bolton can go, which are all there. Bolton for me is in a similar situation to some of the other heroes we'll get onto in a minute. He's more of like a Tails hero. I'm not sure where to place him. No one locally really plays him. I don't know. I know he can be quite consistent, but I don't know how he fares in the current meta, especially post Tails. Bolton, again, similar to Viscera, is a real wild card for this for me. I don't know where Bolton's going to go. Again, there's a couple of different decks, similar to Prism. Bolton, again, I could happily see Bolton making top 24, top 8 decks. But Bolton is an interesting choice. And then we come on to Leviah. So our second brute. Yeah. Again, Leviah, similar to Rhino, is in a really weird place. There are a couple of decks that could do very well, and there are a couple of loyalist Leviah players loyal to wanting to play Leviah and make her work. Again, with it only being a few players, you could really catch people off guard with that deck and absolutely smash them. But I think if you mess up any sequencing or turning or something like that, or someone blanks your ability somehow through like sleep darts or uh, the Guardian one that also blanks it, I think that also struggles. I think it's a high risk, high reward deck. Again, I think you'll see similar numbers to her as you do Rhino. Um, and again, I wouldn't be surprised to see any of those players make the top 24, but I think she's a bit less likely to than Rhino. I think she's a bit more risky. She hits a bit harder, but yeah, Levia definitely a bit more of an interesting one. Which also brings us on to the former boogeyman, Jane. Jane. As one, I can say I'm very happy about the Seeds ban disappearing. Uh, yep, I'm glad I don't have to worry about that card this week, or in practice. But Chain still has some very solid decks out there. Again, as proved by the ProQuest, Chain can still top 8. A ProQuest, Chain is still very scary. Again, similar to Bravo, less so. Like he lost Seeds, but he has gained some other tools through Prior coming in. Not as many because obviously he hasn't gained. Well, he's gained the new equipment, but he hasn't gained anything of huge note other than the legs. But I still think you maybe don't play them. I think you maybe play the suede boots actually. I don't know. I'm trying to remember what the boots do. But yeah, he's still gained some cards. Obviously, the Majestic from Tails as well is very good. I think you Soul Shackle a lot less, but you have a lot more natural go again, maybe. I don't really know. Again, Chain, similar to Pot 1, I don't really know where to place. I don't know if the players who are playing Chain and planning Chains for Nationals have gone, Seeds ban, cool, I'm going to move on to something else, put their focus in, rather than trying to force Chain to work. Or you could have those players that's gone, actually, I've invested in all the Chain cards, I'm going to make Chain work, and I've really committed to that. And again, because maybe people may be thinking a lower representation, haven't practiced as much. However, a lot of the tools you take against Chain, you also take against Viserai, Briar, and I'll come on to Briar in a second. But I think Chain could also be a very wild card deck. I think Monarch other than Prism is a very wild card set. I think it would still do better than a lot of the Arcane heroes, Arcane Rising heroes, but I still think you're I don't want to say struggling. Struggling is the wrong word. I still think they have a lot of good matchups and they have a lot of bad matchups. Again, Chain without Seed maybe is a little bit more glass cannony. It's a lot less oppressive, which is healthy for the benefit of the game. Um, yeah, Prism. And brings us on to Tails, which is more wild card. Um, I can guarantee there will be one Lexi player there. Um, and again, Lexi, I think Lexi 2 top 8 in ProQuest, very different deck. The Snap Stealer Death Dealer deck and the Lightning deck. I still think there's a really good Ice Lexi deck out there as well, waiting to do well, waiting to get onto that deck list tab. Just to really funk it up, I have 3 different decks. Lexi does all the things I wish Azalea could. Genuinely. I think the lightning is a huge help for her. I think the ice is also a huge help for her. It kind of forks you in 2 ways. You can either go kind of more of a Katsu of death by 1,000 cuts, or you can go the more have 10 damage, have 10 damage, have 10 damage, have 10 damage. High pressure, sort of dominated shots with some nasty on hit effects. And I think that makes Alexi, again, interesting. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of Lexis in the top 4. I think she's going to be a bit more popular. With a fair representation. I'm not going to say huge. I'm not going to say a few. But I think sort of maybe between 8 and 10% of the field. As Lexi, I think she won't be in the top 3 most popular heroes, but she'll be around about that top 5, 6. She'll be middle of the pack in terms of people playing her. Again, really cool. But flip side of that, have people kind of slept on the Tails heroes due to there being a newer set, not focused on them as much? You know, they've got their hero. That's what got them into nationals, and that's what they're going to play at nationals. I feel with this game there's a bit less loyalty than L5R. Me, always played Unicorn. I have taken different decks to different tournaments, different classes. Ranger will always have a soft spot in my heart. Name of the channel, my surname, their playstyle. Again, I love Azalea's lore, kind of like Lexi's lore as well. They're very different for both being Rangers as well, which I absolutely love. So good credit on that. But yeah, Lexi, I could see sneaking into the top 24. I could see quite an average representation, which I think is really good for one of the newer heroes. Yeah, and then we go on to Old Him. Again, another quite difficult one. So again, Tails hero is quite difficult based on there being two pro quests in America. Uh, Oldham didn't place in the top 8 in either of them. I think Bravo is a little bit more consistent. I think Oldham, you're worried about time too much. Obviously, sealed and draft completely different. But CC, I don't think you play Oldham over Bravo. I think he's a bit too slow and not consistent enough compared to some of the other heroes that you can then play in CC and build a deck around. Again, could be completely wrong. Again, I haven't had much go against Oldham. I haven't had much experience seeing him in other matchups at Oldham. Again, bit more of a wild card in my head, and I'm not quite sure. And then we go on to Briar. Now, Briar for me, again, I'm thinking she'll be the most popular of the Tails heroes. Sort of high mid of the pack, sort of maybe fourth represented behind sort of Katsu, Dorian, Prism. Very good deck, very good mix of damage, similar to sort of Chain in that way, but obviously has the benefit of the elemental cards. I think her ability, and she's a bit less risky because you're not taking any blood debt. Again, if you switch Briar off somehow, or you switch, or you burn all her cards out with Chain, if you could have a turn where you force them to discard their hand, like you hit them with a big attack, they block 2 cards, you pummel, for example, and you scrap their hand out, and they have no way of pitch, they can take a lot of damage. Briar doesn't have that. Her abilities are amazing. They're definitely not abilities to lie on or sleep on. The embodiments, you can get some crazy bogs in there for very little cards and very little effect on the turn you want to have. you know, or you have a turn where your hand doesn't get penalised, and you're coming in with an earth attack with go again for like 9 damage, resource floating coming in with a weapon. She's a bit more consistent. I don't think she's as oppressive as Chain was. I think she's probably on a similar level of power to Chain is now, but again, hasn't had the sting of being, banned cards and stuff like that. Obviously, Dustblade sucks, but could completely see why that was banned as well. And again, it was banned before anyone started really testing with it, which is always good. But yeah, I think Briar, again, good representation, will have a good placing as well. And again, you could go either way. Like, again, sideboarding against Briar is very hard. You don't know if she's going to go Earth Stompy or whether she's going to go more like Lightning, Death by 1,000 Cuts. And I think that's the really interesting part with the 3 Tails heroes, especially. Less so Oldham, but more Briar and Lexi, is you sit across on that table and you have to work out what their playstyle is. Especially if you're packing sideboard cards to deal with aggro or to deal with big dominated shots. Do you move that movable in there? Or instead do you take a load of smaller defenses like sinks and stuff like that? And I think that's the really interesting part on the 3 Tails. Like I say, a bit less so Oldham. But yeah, overall, that's my thoughts on the heroes going into nationals. I hope you have enjoyed this video. please do like, share, and subscribe. And what I am going to do is sort of like a vloggy style, and then go over my deck list for Nationals, and that will aim to come out on the Monday or Tuesday after Nationals. But I hope you have enjoyed, and we will catch you in the next video. And thank you ever so much. Have a lovely day, and catch you soon.